The tributes are pouring in for five-time Emmy nominee Michael K. Williams, who portrayed, well, the iconic role of Omar Little in HBO's The Wire. Many other movie roles as well. He was found dead yesterday afternoon in his apartment in New York from a possible drug overdose. Joining us now are two people who knew Michael on and off screen, his co-stars from The Wire, Andre Royo and Sonia Som. Thanks so much to both of you. I know there's got to be some tough hours and days for you going forward. The link between Williams' pain, his past, previous drug use, and his performances, you could see it throughout his career, right? You could see it coming across the screen, both in movies and series. And I wonder if you could share with us what it was like working with him, how he brought that to life. I'll go with you first, Andre.
I mean, working with Mike, he was always appreciative of the opportunity. For him, it was always about the opportunity. He knew that a lot of people didn't get this opportunity to have a chance to shine bright and delve into his craft and share his craft. And for him, it just spoke to how he was as a person. He wanted to make sure that, he showed people that, that he can shine bright and be a good actor and also a good person and take this opportunity and help other people.
Yeah.
So for him, it was always about the opportunity to help.
I see you nodding there, Sonia.
Yes. Michael took his role in this business very seriously. He understood it to be a mission and a purpose, a path that God chose for him. He utilized this art form for something so much greater than his own benefit. This arena was a place where he could take the brutality that life sometimes bestowed upon him and alchemize that into something, through this craft that brought beauty and healing to other folks. I just want to offer something from our brother Wendell Pierce. He's reminded me, that Michael portrayed two very iconic characters in, for us, the African American television canon, and that is Omar and Sharky White. And we really do believe that there are very few actors, if any, who could have brought the level of humanity that he did to those characters. And the only way that I believe he could have done that was to really inject his own spirit into that. He utilized this art form for something just so much greater than his own benefit. We won't look at LGBTQ folks in the same way again. There is no one that has brought light and awareness and nuanced perspectives to the LGBTQ image.
Yeah.
We're going to miss him dearly.
He had enormous advocacy off screen as well, right? Using his fame to draw attention to issues. Criminal justice reform was a big one for him. And New York Times quotes a childhood friend of his, Darryl Wilds, who called him a prophet of the projects in his advocacy. And I wonder if that resonates with either of you.
Yeah, I mean, it resonates with me because, I met Michael in '97, in Brooklyn. And, he always spoke of, how excited he was to get a chance to maybe, with this, new platform as far as acting is concerned, that he would be able to show a path for his brothers and sisters out there in Brooklyn, that they can, have a way out and have a way to be heard and be seen through the arts or through speaking out and stepping in front to speak about political issues, and not to be afraid to step in front and speak on it. You know, with the scar that he had caught, you know, a lot of people would have shied away from being in front of the camera, but not him. He just saw it as a badge of courage that the scar didn't stop him. And I think he knew that him being, every time he was in front of the camera, or anytime he had an opportunity to speak, that he was not speaking just for himself. He was speaking for a lot of people behind him that, you know, that didn't get a chance to speak or don't have a chance to be heard. So he took that very seriously, and hopefully we'll continue to remember him for that, and know that he definitely wore it as a badge of courage, that he was speaking for so many people.
Andre
And Michael really
yeah, sorry, go
understood
on.
the value of. I'm sorry.
No, go on, Sonia.
Yeah, Michael really understood the value of showing up in these places. You know, Michael, you know, came from the projects. He came from the hood, and he went through certain experiences. He had certain lived experiences that never let him forget the pain of coming from those places. And he understood that he was put in this position of power, and he held it with such humility and such grace, but always understood that he had to physically be in front of the people that he was representing, that he was trying to lift up, that he was trying to inspire. He knew that he could not stay in Hollywood. That's why he lived in Brooklyn. That's why he'd always made sure he came back to Baltimore. The people who held him down when he was in his darkest days, before folks out here really knew him. He was loyal. And he was just the biggest heart that folks that you just you know, he was nothing like the characters he played in some ways. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he was
Gentle,
iconic.
kind.
He was iconic in front of the camera, iconic behind the camera. I think that will be his legacy, and he is gone way too soon. And Andre and Sonia, I want to
Yes.
thank you both for being with us.
For sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you
for
so
having me.
much.